Hello everyone, I'm Gala. Today my group members and me will introduce technology-enhanced items in grade 1 to 12 English Language Proficiency Assessment. We will present this research from 9 parts. Background of the research questions and significance are introduced by me, and the training will introduce the necessary parts: methodology, result of analysis, and interpretation of results. Later, Yiming will present conclusion, limitation, and suggestions, as well as critical. In the end, a reflective question will be presented for discussion. In the beginning, let's look at the background of the research. With the advancement of language testing technology in computerized environment, online assessment have increasingly incorporated technology-enhanced items, namely TEIS. TEIS differs from traditional multiple-choice items, namely MCIS, in terms of how students engage with the test interface and select a response. Thus, the previous study claimed TEIS are innovative. And in this passage, the writer mentioned 2 research gaps. First, understanding of TEIS benefits is limited by the lack of evidence on how these item types perform traditional item types, as well as the difficulty of producing from existing data. Second, few empirical studies on the performance of TEIS exist in tests for young learners, particularly English learners in kindergarten and K-12 settings. From the previous research, the current study extends research on TEIS in K-12 assessments. Previous research have investigated the effectiveness of innovative TEIS in educational testing of math and science, and was limited to comparing traditional and innovative items with substantive differences in content and presentation. The interactive nature of TEIS offers improved construct coverage compared with MCIS, but little research exists regarding students' performance on TEIS versus MCIS in English language proficiency assessments. Under this background, the writer explored 2 research questions. First, how do TEIS compare to traditional MCIS in terms of item difficulty, discrimination, and information? Second, how do TEIS compare to traditional MCIS in terms of item efficiency? Despite some limitations, this study is meaningful considering it is the first known study to examine content-matched TEIS and MCIS for English language learners in K-12 settings. This study has clear implications for future item design. TEIS provide many benefits to educational assessment and test takers, including opportunities for increased use of multimedia, multi-means of providing answers and demonstrating knowledge, and more authentic ways to engage with a computerized testing environment. However, the potential pitfall of TEIS is that enhancements can impede the clarity of item response goal. Care should be taken in the development of TEIS to maintain vital textual or visual information when accommodating enhanced response formats. Additional efforts should be made to make hotspot and drag-and-drop options silent to the test takers. Lastly, TEIS work most effectively when they reduce content that is redundant in a traditional item. Test designers should rely on TEIS that can eliminate the need for non-interactive images as item response choices or overlap between answer choices and reading tests. Test developers will benefit from describing these characteristics that contribute to successful TEIS. for the relevant test population in item specifications, so that item writer may consistently reduce TEIS with the required performance criteria.
Welcome to the second part. I'm Chenny and I introduce the methodology, data analysis, and interpretation in this part. Gela has introduced the research question, and my part will focus on the answer of the following two questions. How do TEIs compare to traditional MCIs in terms of item difficulty, discrimination, and information? How do TEIs compare to traditional MCIs in terms of item efficiency? Before introducing the detailed information about the research, we need to introduce the TEIs and MCIs involved in the research. MCIs means traditional multiple choice items, as it shows in the picture. TEIs means technology-enhanced items. Two types of TEIs are involved in this research, which are hotspot and drag and drop. You may read this table and find more information from our handout. Now let's see the details of the research. The subject group is quite large, as 1,149,027 students in grade 1 to 12 took the Access online reading test in 2015 to 2016. In terms of data collection methodology, the Access online reading test including 24 to 30 operational items and 6 field test items. The content-matched TEI and MCI pairs are selected from the test items, which will be used as the subject of the data analysis. In terms of data analysis methodology, telemetry data technology, IRT model, and Wilcoxon's W-test are used. Telemetry data is used to track the computer-based environment of the test takers. In IRT model, curves with higher peaks indicate items are more informative. You can find more information about the formulas from our handout, and the only thing that needs to be mentioned here is that both difficulty, discrimination, ability are varied in the formula. Wilcoxon's W-test is applied to check the usefulness of the data. Now let's turn to data analysis. Researchers divided item characteristics into discrimination and difficulty. This is the detailed data about the results of the pairs. To make it clear, let's analyze the difficulty and discrimination one by one. Firstly, item difficulty. I picked up the important data from the table, and the figure is clear enough to show the result. By comparing the difficulty of the MCI and TEI, we can find that TEI is less difficult only in the level of grade 2 to 3. So the conclusion is that, as a whole, TEI might be a bit difficult than MCI. Secondly, discrimination. The discrimination values of TEI varies across grades. TEI had slightly lower discriminative power than MCI for grade 1, grade 2 to 3, grade 9 to 12. Another finding is that the discrimination of MCI and TEI seems to be consistent. Based on these findings, the conclusion is that the discrimination may be influenced by the item content instead of item type. The figure 6 is made according to the IRT model. It shows that discrimination of MCI and TEI varied also by test takers' proficiency level. Take the figure of grade 4 to 5 as an example. The discrimination will increase with the rise of proficiency level of test takers. Let's move on to the last criteria, item information. The author explained the meaning of item information as a measure of reliability. Here is a figure of item information curves. Since the information in each table is different, We will only use grade 4 to 5 as an example. In this table, the TEIs and MCIs are the most informative when the subject's language ability is at level 2, and the TEIs are slightly more informative. However, as a whole, the MCIs and TEIs information are similar, producing non-significant differences at different levels and across grades. Now, let's turn to the second research question. How do TEIs compare to traditional MCIs in terms of item efficiency? Researchers analyzed the item efficiency in two aspects: duration and efficiency. According to the figure, at each grade level, TEIs on average requires more time to answer than MCIs. However, the difference in time duration varied across grade levels. For example, for subjects in grade 9 to 12, the time required to complete the TEI was much greater than the MCI. According to this figure, the efficiency of MCIs seemed to be better than TEIs in every grade level except grade 6 to 8 level. While Coxon's W test is used to verify the meaning of the research on the difference of item duration. From the table, we can also find that effects between drag and drop items and traditional MCIs are stronger than between hotspot items and traditional MCIs. That's all for my part, and my partner will summarize the analysis and interpretation and present our reflections and recommendations on the research.
Hey, I'm Yiming. Now I will talk about the conclusion of the research. First, TEIs are overall more difficult than traditional MCIs. Second, TEIs are more discriminating at higher levels of performance at upper grade levels. Third, TEIs take a significantly longer time to complete than traditional MCIs across grades. There are some limitations and suggestions for future study. First, the research looked at only a small pool of items, even though the data is from a big range of the test takers, but the useful data is very small. So we suggest future study should look at more data with comparable test items. Second, the research couldn't explain the novelty effect, which is whether the test takers is familiar with the item format or not. So the future research requires longitudinal analysis to determine whether the novelty effect disappears after students become more familiar with the item format. Third, the research was more on data observation than figuring out the reasons. So the future research should get more information on test takers' cognition to better understand the reasons underlying item performance. Here are some critiques. The strength is number one, the novelty of this research. The data is collected from lots of young English learners, and the psychometric properties are well considered. Second, the data analysis is very logical. The author uses lots of format and explained how he do the calculation to analyze the data. Third, the graphics are very clear and well presented. The weaknesses. First, the definition of TEI, technology enhanced item, is not clear. Only two types of technology enhanced items are in the data, which are drag and drop and hotspot. And the author didn't explain why these two types are typical. Second, the data is only about reading assessment, not listening, speaking, or writing. Third, no feedback from the test takers. So we couldn't know the test takers' review about the technology enhanced items. Do they like it or not?
That is what we want to share today. Thank you for your attention. Let's discuss this question. Have you used technology-enhanced items as a learner or a teacher? How effective it was?